Welcome to the Shaman Stories podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy, and with me today's guest is a holistic energy specialist. Please welcome Wendy Johnson, a Reiki master and life coach. Thank you for being here, Wendy.
Thank you for having me.
So, why don't you go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do now with your practices today?
Well, right now my biggest goal is to teach Reiki. I'm at this time I'm teaching online and at my home. I have had a little mishap with a house fire, so it's made it a little bit more challenging as to having the space to do the in-person teaching, which is really where my passion lies, is to teach people in person. So I've been doing it online and I do lots of meditation. I do chakra clearing. Um, yeah, I do lots of those kinds of metaphysical things. EFT, emotional freedom technique.
And with the Reiki, do you do a specific Reiki because there's so many different versions of Reiki these days?
So if I teach Yasui Holy Fire Reiki, when I do sessions for people, I use laser Reiki, Yasui Holy Fire Reiki, Karuna Reiki. I kind of mix them all together. I kind of do a lot of things very intuitionally as the knowingness just comes to me for what the person's needs are
That
as
makes
I'm
sense.
working with them. Yeah.
With this podcast, though, we're going to talk about your journey to how you got to where you are today. So, how was your childhood overall? Did you grow up with these kind of practices in your house? Were you that kid who was going to the metaphysical stores in your area, if they were around back then, looking at crystals, getting books on these things, or was it completely different?
Absolutely not. Um, my dad is, for lack of a better term, because they don't use this term, is a preacher. He's a Jehovah's Witness, and he was pretty well prominent in that. And I had to live up to all the standards as to basically being a preacher's daughter. And all of this is absolutely looked down upon. It's not, it's the devil's work, is how they would put it. So I was well into my 30s before I stumbled across anything metaphysical. And I did childcare for 23 years out of my home, and my children were all flying out of the nest. And I'm like, okay, so I don't need to have all these kids here. I don't need to be home all the time. So what else could I do that would give my life meaning still, that didn't have all these regulations and all the stuff I was having to deal with? And I was thinking I would become a counselor and go back to college and all this. And somehow I stumbled across life coaching. So I'm also a life coach. I'm a law of attraction life coach. So based off of that, and in the classes, I took like a year course for that. I learned about the law of attraction, which I had to let go and grow spiritually in ways I didn't even know existed through that. There was some channeling that happened, and I had to stop and go, oh my God. At one point, I was like, oh my God, I paid thousands and thousands of dollars for this course. Am I going to get struck by lightning here and die because, Satan's going to get me? Kind of thing. And I'm like, well, no, you paid all this money. See where this takes you. And the more I studied it and the more I did it, the more passion I had and the more I could see how it played a role in my life. Manifesting. I tell you what, I can manifest just about anything if I really set my mind to it. And I really don't even have to. It just comes to me naturally. And I went from there to learning hypnotherapy, which was again very taboo. And then Reiki came into my life by another friend that was also a Jehovah's Witness, had asked me, hey, you want to go to this class with me? And I was learning, lots of different things. And by then I was already 10 feet under, so I might as well keep going. So I took her up on the offer to go to a free class at the Reiki Ranch. Had no idea, never even heard the word Reiki before. I just thought, hey, I'm going to connect with an old friend. This is going to be great. Well, I took that class 3 times. And then I just kept going. I took, what did I take next? Next was laser Reiki. I stepped into laser Reiki, and then I stepped into Holy Fire Reiki. And I've done some other classes along the way as well from different people that use different types of symbols and stuff. And I love the energy work and how much it helps other people. and myself included. Like I had to grow and I had to let go of a lot of stuff. And I was raising three boys by myself at the time I did all this and running my daycare so I could pay for it all. And I stepped out of the daycare and since then I've kind of just been doing this, you know, I want to say as a hobby, because that's kind of how it is for me. It's not like I rely on it for my income, but I do it as a passion more than a hobby, I guess. It's more of as a passion. And yeah, so that's kind of part of my journey there. But I definitely was not part of my childhood. I had a good childhood, it just wasn't part of it.
And I'm curious about the law of attraction life coaching. So, obviously I've heard of law of attraction, but how would you use that for life coaching?
Okay, so what you think about comes about.
Hmm.
So you get your, like, let's just say grumpy old man, right? And what are his thoughts? His thoughts are the world is going to end today, no matter what, right? So there's different processes that we were taught how to encourage them to change the way they think. So the first thought, they're programmed basically to have these negative thoughts instantly every time. So you help them. One of the processes that comes to me in this moment is have them pick a topic, whatever their issue is at the time, and come up with three different things. I'm trying to think of a good subject. Let's say they just want a better life, but they're, oh, my dog died yesterday, and oh, I don't know, no. So what you would do is you would have them write down three things in a different manner than they would normally think of it in a positive way. So, um, dog dying probably isn't the best
Let's
example for
try
them.
losing their job.
Losing their job, that's a good one. So sometimes we lose our job for a reason. Sometimes there's something better waiting for us, and we just don't know that. And as much as you're going to go through all the grief and things, so then you would help them come up with three taglines, basically, or little paragraphs of how they're going to, what their next steps are going to be. I'm looking forward to, you would have them decide what job they wanted, like, what their dream was. You would ask them that first. What is your dream job? Okay, so we're going to help you get to that point. So, in order to do that for you, what does that look like? Okay, so that looks like I'm going to be a movie star. Okay, let's just throw that in there. So, what does looking like a movie star look like to you? It looks like I'm going to be living in Las Vegas and doing plays every week, right? That's their idea of a movie star. So you'd have them write these things down, and then you would bring them all together and you add some other words in there that feels right for them. So it's very important that they pick the words and
Hmm.
that it really resonates with them as a person, because they're going to read this every day and they have to be able to believe it. Because if they're just writing, like I said, a movie star, if it's not something they feel they can attain, it's not doable. It's not going to
Hmm.
work. But basically, you find the positive in their negative situation or feelings or thoughts. You help them come up with the positive, and then you would have them read this every day for a couple of weeks, and then you'd come back and see how they're feeling about it. Because the basis of some of that is just raising their vibration, their energy level around the whole situation,
Hmm.
so that they're not, bah humbug totally. Because the more bah humbug we are, the more that keeps us, our energy stays down there, right? So if we can find a way to feel better, it's about feel better about the situation, no matter what it is, the lighter we're going to feel. And the more our life is going to just magically look like it changes, when it really is, we're doing it ourselves by being in control of our thoughts and our feelings. And that's how we attract better feeling things.
That makes sense. And with that, so I know with Reiki, obviously it's energy work and we use it for moving blockages or helping with the emotional side of things too. Do you use those in conjunction, so helping them remove any blockages that are stopping them from moving forward and then make them do these mantras or these statements of affirmation?
I have, yes.
Right.
It depends on the client and what I feel their needs are and how real stuck they are in some areas.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go back just a little bit though before that. So you had mentioned you started the life coaching, the law of attraction. What actually inspired you to start that process? Was it you just saw a Facebook ad for it, or was there what was it that drew you to it? That inspiration to actually get you to start this journey? Because that's a big leap from where you are now, from where you were then, growing up as a Jehovah's Witness preacher daughter.
It's very step by step. So I was in the middle of a divorce. Things were changing within my daycare business. So I had to go back to school and do more education as early childhood education, which I wasn't really, it's not that I wasn't interested, but I really wasn't where I wanted my journey in life to go. And I knew that. I'd done it for 23 years. I didn't really want to go back to college for that. So that's where I started looking at the therapy side of it. It's like my husband at the time had a huge situation at work where they let over half the company go. And him and I would have been fine if they'd let him go. So he was sure they were going to let him go. And all his friends that had big families that were relying on that job would be fine. Well, it didn't happen that way. He got to keep his job, and most all of his friends got let go, and he didn't know how they were going to survive. And watching him go through that and not having any tools to be able to help him kind of is where I started the therapy side of it. And then as I was kind of digging around, just one day in an email, I got a thing about life coaching with Christy Whitman. And it was a big, long audio thing. And my son just happened to be going to a state band thing in Eastern Washington. So I listened to it the whole way over there and the whole way back. By the time I got home, I was like, I want to do this, but I have no money. I have not the money to do this. So within the next year, it just kept coming up and kept coming up and kept coming up. And knowing what I know now about manifesting, I was like, within the next year, I manifested enough money that I just one day went, okay, I'm doing it. I'm just signing up for it. I don't know how I'm going to pay for this, but it's going to happen. And I did not struggle to pay for it at all. The money just came in as I needed to. Once I made the decision that this is what I'm doing. I need a way to help people. I don't really want to go to college for 4 years for a therapy license. And I couldn't see myself really being a traditional therapist, not putting that down, because I definitely think that has a lot of value to it. So then once I started my process of life coaching, and it just all kind of just unraveled for me piece by piece. And I couldn't have gotten from one place to the other. Yeah. And like I said, I was going through a divorce. I had a son die right previous to that. And when I decided to make this jump, I also left that religion at the same time, the Jehovah's Witnesses religion. And when I did that, I lost all of the people that I knew growing up as a child and as an adult, because that religion shuns you when you no longer are part of them, if you've been baptized. So I had to start my whole life over at the same time. So I kind of just took one great big leap and threw everything in the air to see where the pieces landed.
And that was going to actually be my next question on that is how has your family and friends from that previous life taken to your new life? Have you
You know,
mend any bridges there, or is it still just cut off and you're dead to me?
both.
Okay.
Both. I have a lot of my childhood friends are no longer Jehovah's Witnesses either. Like the girl that took me to the first Reiki class, Amy. She's no longer either. So that was my big draw to want to go meet her. I hadn't seen her in years, and we hadn't talked in years because we both came from that same place, and it was all taboo, right? And I had, like I said, no idea what Reiki even was, nor did I really even give it a second thought. It's like, oh yeah, we're going to go do this class. Hell, I've already done all this other stuff. I can't be any further under in trouble than I am. So whatever this is, can't be any worse. So I jumped on the bandwagon and we both left that driving down the road in the car looking at each other like, what did we just do? What was that? Do we really believe that? And we've had conversations since then. And matter of fact, just recently, and she's like, I didn't think you'd ever go back. She goes, and you ended up going back 3 times. And since then, we've actually taught Reiki classes together. She's also a Reiki master. So that's been a really fun journey, actually. None of my children have stayed with that religion. And that was one of my biggest pulls of leaving, was kind of just to keep them from going through some of the same things I did as a teenager with such strict and I didn't believe a lot of the religious stuff. So yeah, I'm in a way better place. And I do have to attribute a lot of it to the positivity that I've learned to think and feel and leave the fear behind. Because a lot of that religion was really fear-based, in my opinion. And I got to learn in the law of attraction, life coaching, how to not live my life based off of fear, how to flip the switch and look at the positive side of every situation. It doesn't matter what it is, from your children dying to, getting a new job.
Hmm.
There's a reason, there's a way to find a positive thing in everything. It may not feel like it in the moment, and you may need help clearing some of those blocks and not always be able to do it all by yourself. Hence why we're here. Hence why you have life coaches and other people out there knowing modalities and having modalities to help. And that's kind of my goal, is to help people get through all of the stuff I went through a little bit easier.
Agreed. Yeah, that's definitely made it easier for me. It's the trying to find the lessons and the meaning as to the why things happen.
Yes.
And it's hard. It's not easy. I mean,
No.
my for example, my own father died about a year and a half ago. That was a hard time, but going through that and knowing more from a shamanic view of life and death and what's next, it made it a lot easier for me than say if I'd never believed in anything and he's just gone, and that's
Right.
just, I know that's not true, and I've communicated with him since then and gotten even more lessons from him, and having that for me, it changed everything. It made it so much easier.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I understand that fully. I had some of the same similar type of experiences when my son passed, way after my son passed.
Hmm.
As I grew spiritually, different things came in for me too as well. And it did make it way easier to understand and let some of the grief go from it.
And with that, so going from the religion to the more spiritual, and I guess one could argue they're kind of the same. They're just different ways of getting there. And I never want to disparage anyone who believes in a specific religion, because that's not what this is about.
Exactly.
But how has your definition of spirituality or the higher power changed since childhood to now?
Well, I was taught there's only one way. There's only one journey, and only these certain people are going to make it through this journey. If you believe this one specific way and use these specific words and this very specific. And I don't believe that anymore. I think we're all on our own journey, and we're all going to get to the end result in a different way, whatever that looks like for whatever your belief system is. I like being able to be open and being able to actually look at different people's perspectives of spirituality versus being religious and just following one perspective, period.
Hmm.
Because I don't believe there's just one way. I believe we're all on a journey and we're all learning lessons throughout these journeys. And that makes the meaning of life in a lot of ways, is our journey and how we get there and what we go through, good, bad, or otherwise, because if life was all just blissful, as great as that sounds, I just really have to say it might not be, it might be a little boring. And the lessons wouldn't be there, and the aha moments, and you got to have the lows to get the highs,
Hmm.
of life.
And with those lows, as you went down this journey, did you encounter any major setbacks or challenges for your path? And how did you deal with any moments of doubt and fear? Because there was a big transformation for you. It wasn't just I slowly worked my way into it. It was strict doctrine to where you're at now.
It's been a lifelong journey, honestly. Yes, and that's a lot. That's a big question. Because, like I said, it took a long time. I started leaving the religion, looking back, at about 19. My husband and I were kind of forced to get married or leave the religion. And we got married so they wouldn't kick us out. And then they kicked us out anyway. So then we went back because that's all we knew. And then as time went on, we ended up divorced. And at that point, part of that divorce became because I couldn't conform to all of their things any longer. I just couldn't. They started to compartmentalize my children, and I had these little kids, and I'm looking at my 8-year-old son and some of the things they wanted of him, and I'm like, no, this is not okay. I can't do this. And I'm looking at my life from that point to this point and all of the restrictions and things that they put on them. I'm like, there's got to be something more to life than this. I can't see making it with 3 boys through their teenage years without me ending up in the same shoes of having to choose between my children and my religion. And I was not going to be put in that position. That's probably my biggest driving point, is I was not going to be put in the position of having to choose my children over my religion, and what God would really put you in that position. So that's kind of where my journey probably began, as I decided that I'm leaving, and my husband at the time did not want to leave. So I stayed, and my boys and I started a different journey. Yeah.
But was there any moments of like doubt where you
Yes.
thought you might have to want to go back, or maybe you're
Definitely.
making the wrong choice, or
Definitely.
while you're sitting at the Reiki ranch going, what are they talking about? I need to go back to the like,
But, the thing that pops out in my mind the most in the moment is I was doing the life coaching, and they started talking about channeling. And I was like, oh my God, that's gotta be Satan. What am I doing? Did I just totally take the wrong path? Like, should I even be here? Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe I should go back. And then I'm like, okay. And yes, I talk to myself a lot. I'm like, no, self, you really need to take a step back and look at this whole picture, because why is that so wrong? So then I had to kind of just analyze it. And I kind of chose to just keep going forward, even though I still wasn't sure. I wasn't 100% sure at that point, but everything else around the law of attraction that I was learning, and the law of attraction really has nothing to do with channeling. It just happened to be Abraham Hicks version is who I went through, and that's a channeling thing. And so once I figured out that, I kind of panicked in the moment, because all of my belief system from my past that I'd had since a child all came flooding back. So then I had to sort and sift through it all and ask the questions to myself and do some of my own little research to get some answers. And at the same time, I kept going forward, because like I said, everything felt in alignment. Everything felt good as I moved forward. I could tell I was losing the fear of life. Before, I was afraid of life. I was afraid every step I took was the wrong step. I was always looking over my shoulder as to, when am I going to get in trouble next? When am I going to step off the brick and fall on my face again, so to speak? So, and I didn't have those feelings as I moved forward and learned more spiritual things. And I didn't feel like I had to live up to somebody else's expectations.
no, that makes sense. And with that, then, what does spiritual fulfillment look or feel to you now?
Hmm. Just knowing that I have the ability, that we all have the ability that the spirits around us do help us, that they are there and they will guide us, which is something that they don't believe. They believe that's all Satan. It gives me a sense of relief, a sense of not being alone.
So what's next for Wendy when it comes to what you want to learn, what you want to experience? Is there you mentioned you're going to start teaching, or you have been teaching, but are you looking to learn like a different modality? Are you going to try to play with some new tools in your toolbox?
I've looked at different modalities. I've looked at shamanism, actually. It was one of the ones that keeps coming up for me, which is very intriguing to me. My biggest goal really at some point is to have some property where I hold retreats to help other healers heal, to go have a place to go to replenish themselves. Because we all have that low point. Like I said, you have to get low, you have to come to the low point and bring yourself back up somehow. And I want to be part of that for those that are reaching out to help other people in the world. And whether that be a police officer or other healers like Reiki masters or Reiki people or healing touch or, you know, anybody that's in the position of helping other people.
Mhm.
That's really my life goal is to be able to have a space and hold a space for other people, as well as teach other people Reiki so that they can go out and help other people in the world.
Have you ever tried any plant medicines or anything? Ayahuasca, mushrooms, in a
I have
ceremonial context, so not taking mushrooms and going to a concert, but
no, actually, I have not. That has been kind of on my radar. I've asked a few people a few questions about that, and I have some friends that have recommended it actually that have done it.
no, just curious.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, a lot of people when they talk about their healing areas that they want to create or these retreats, sometimes
Mhm.
that gets thrown into the mix as well. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've done both personally and would highly recommend it, but you have to be ready for it. It's not a recreational thing whatsoever.
And that's what I've heard too. It's kind of takes you to the next level, kind of so to speak, is what I've been told. And I've had a few friends that have done that and had some amazing experiences with it. And it's taken them to the next level. They've written some amazing books that have been put out there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, if you could offer any advice to someone starting out on their own journey, what would you say to them at this point?
Follow your heart and your intuition. It will guide you. And sometimes the hardest thing for us to do is listen to our own higher self. Are that those little thoughts that pop in? Sometimes we're all so programmed over our course of life and being a child that we don't listen to those thoughts. And I know I was very much told not to as a child. I would say things and my mom would be like, "You don't know that. How do you know that? Don't listen to that. What are you thinking?" And I know my mom is very intuitional because she caught on immediately. She caught on immediately. So follow your heart, follow your intuition.
And how would you recommend someone do that who's never done it before, connecting to their higher self or fully getting in tune with themselves?
Hmm. Maybe finding someone else that knows how that can help guide you.
Right. Find their own little life coach, if you will.
There you go.
Throughout your entire journey that you went through, what surprising insights or lessons did you learn about yourself along the way?
Maybe just how intuitive I really am and how we can create our own life by how we think and feel.
Hmm.
You can create your life to be miserable if your thoughts are really, really negative. Um, just an example would be some of this stuff I'm going through with my house fire. I got kind of to a really low point of this is just crap. We're never going to get through all this. And one day somebody said something about being positive and I don't know what it was, but it just went off in my brain because nothing was going the way we needed it to go. Our housing was an issue. We had all kinds of issues going on. I went, oh crap, I know better than the way I'm thinking. I know that if I choose more positive thoughts, everything will turn around and become the way I want it to be and need it to be. So I started just people would have some, oh my God, I can't believe blah blah. I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be okay because this is what I'm waiting for to happen, and this is what's gonna happen for us. And inevitably, that's exactly what happened. We have had it's turned around and it's coming to a better place. It started moving quicker. Our housing, we ended up with a house for 6 months. Beyond, I was gonna rent a house that I really hated. It's part of it. I was like, oh, there was no housing. And I'm like, I do not want to live in that house. The rooms were, you could barely fit a twin size bed in it. So I was like, it's not going to work. I'd rather stay. And we were at the time living in a travel trailer. So I was like, I'd rather stay in this travel trailer, but we had to have a house because we had to go through our contents. So I'm like, well, you know what? I am just going to hold out. I'm not going to rent this house. I'm just going to hold out for the house that I want. And it's going to be the house of my dreams. And I just constantly, daily kept reminding myself of what my dream was, of what I wanted. And the next thing you know, I find a house. Not that there was no little mishaps along the way. I find a house, but it wouldn't take our pets. And all I kept finding is I had pets and I couldn't have a house and da 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 da. So I decided, okay, I am going to have what I want. I'm not going to give up there. So I started emailing some of them and asking if I paid a little bit more rent, maybe. Well, somebody ended up agreeing. And I ended up in this really nice, beautiful house for 6 months. And we were able to go through our contents and have more than enough room to bring all of our stuff in here and go through it and sort it out into separate rooms. And it was more than I could have asked for. I couldn't have even asked for what I ended up with. Yeah, just really stay in control of your own thoughts and flip the switch to something positive, and it can change the entire outcome of everything.
Mhm. Agreed. Yeah, I've been watching these videos from the Kabbalah Center. I forget the teacher's name. It escapes me, but one of the things he says is, oh, you received some bad news or something's triggering you, something's making you angry. He's like, the first thing you need to do is just pause.
Yeah.
Don't interact with it. Don't say anything. Just pause. And then think to yourself, what a pleasure this is. And he's like, it's really hard, and it doesn't mean you just take it, let people walk all over you. You don't
Right?
fight if something bad happens, but you just take a minute, pause, don't engage, and just say, what a pleasure this is. You're thanking the creator, the way he puts it is you're thanking them for putting this in front of you because whatever negativity you're receiving, you're going to get it tenfold in the opposite direction. And so I've been sitting with that because every now and then it's like, God damn, so something happens. I'm like, wait, pause. What a pleasure. And even if I don't fully believe it, he's like, you don't have to believe it. Just keep fake it till you make it type of thing.
Yeah.
I've been
Yep.
finding that pretty interesting to try.
Yeah, it is. And that's like kind of similar because that's what I kind of do. Is it's like, okay, I've got to find something good in the situation. And if I can't find something good in the situation, like you just said, you pause, think about something different that does make you feel better. Completely put your focus on something that does give you some sort of pleasure or positive focus. Then your body releases that negative energy to some degree and your whole vibration shifts, which allows for more positive energy to come in.
Hmm. So with your practices today, is there anything you do on the daily to help you stay this positive? Do you do some meditation, mindfulness? What kind of, I don't know, rituals or exercises type things do you do on a daily basis?
What do I do? Listen to vibrational music on YouTube, and I play it when I sleep, and then I'll play it just during the day when I'm just around. And I kind of pick it out based off of whatever I'm feeling that day. If it's to help with physical ailments or if it's to help with anxiety. I do suffer from anxiety quite a bit. So and I use positive affirmations as another thing I will listen to. I'll play it on my TV on YouTube. I just turn it on and let it play over and over and over again some days. Some days I just listen to it once. Some days I do journaling. I'm really avid about journaling. I have like 10 different journals and I pick the journal according to how I feel. Because to me, it matters what things look like. It invokes a feeling in you. So if you go to do journaling and just like, well, here's one that I don't journal in. It looks just like this, right? Opposed to something that maybe brings a positive feeling to you, like, let's see, like this one. Has all kinds of words on it that, learn, faith, destiny, no regrets.
Just for the audio, the first one was just a plain black journal. The
Oh
second one
yeah.
is like a bright pink shiny with butterflies and writing all over it.
Yes, sorry.
No
Yes.
worries, just want to make sure.
Yeah, so the visual makes a huge difference in how it makes you feel. So if it's something that makes, a plain black one might make somebody else feel great because they may vision something on the front of it, being plain. But it has to make you feel personally more positive because that raises your vibration. It has to give you a good feeling of some sort or a good thought of some sort when you pick it up and go to write in it because that's going to invoke make it a little easier to find more positive things to journal about. And I'm also very specific in journaling about the things I want, not the crap I'm dealing with. I journal about the way I want my life to be or the way I want to see a situation come out, not about what it is. Unless I'm going to burn it. Sometimes I'll do a ritual burn where I'll put all the crap down and then I take it and burn it to release it. And then I will sit and write how I want it to actually look.
Hmm. Yeah, we do something similar on the shamanic sides because I'm a fire shaman, and so
Mhm.
we use fire as because it's the fastest form of transformation. So we'll actually blow things that we want to get rid of into a stick or a piece of paper and we'll burn it. But we also do for what we want. So we'll blow in the things we want to bring into this world too, and we'll burn that. And then once it burns, it manifests faster for you.
Oh, wow.
Because some people, they'll write things down and they'll bury it as a way
Uh-huh.
of transformation, which works, but that's a slow burn because you have to wait for things to dissolve. Same with air or water, you have to wait for it to dissolve. And it's slower, it still works, but we use fire. So when I'm clearing out chakras or anything else, we throw everything into the fire,
Nice.
good
Yeah.
or bad.
Right.
So it's very similar to that.
That's cool. I've never heard that before.
Or same with people who make sigils. They'll make their sigils, and some people will burn those as well to make it come alive faster.
Okay.
So fire is a very important part for a lot of traditions.
That's that's awesome to know.
And with that, with your Reiki, so I want to just talk a little bit about the Reiki practice in general. You mentioned the standard Reiki, the laser Reiki, the holy fire Reiki. Obviously, three different ways of using the same life force energy. Do you find you use one more than another, or is there one that you find maybe goes a little bit deeper on a client or yourself than another? And obviously, I don't want to label one better than another, but when you're working on a specific issue, so you mentioned anxiety. Would you use one over a person's anxiety more than another?
Um, it really just depends on the person and their situation. I find that laser Reiki is great with pain, physical pain and physical ailments because it's more pinpointed for a direct issue. Not that they're not all direct issues, but just how I use them, I guess, because you could use it, like you said, across the board. They all work. And I feel like that seems to work faster if you have physical pain. The Holy Fire Reiki has different symbols in it that are very specific to certain types of issues. And the Yusui Reiki, I use kind of just in conjunction with all of it, the symbols and things. That's kind of how I use it as far as that goes, as I use the symbols. I also use the Holy Fire Reiki has oh, the word just flew out of my head, a toning with it, with the symbols. So you can use the symbols and say them out loud in tone, and you can feel the vibration. The client can feel it as you're saying it,
Hmm.
or kind of humming it, I guess you could say, even in their body, which helps clear out different um, blockages in the body. So I use that one for that too. And so, yeah, they kind of do different things, even though, like you said, they're not, I don't think one's better than the other. I just personally, the way I utilize them and use them in my practice is just each piece is a little bit different.
Because, I've also been Reiki master, laser Reiki, also from the Reiki ranch. I just never done the holy fire Reiki. And I kind of look at laser Reiki, it's very shamanic in its own way because you're actually clearing ancestral trauma, you're doing past life work.
Mhm.
It's a different way, obviously, than the way I've been taught with my lineage, but it's very similar. And the standard Reiki, how do you say it? Uh,
Yusui.
Usui Reiki, excuse me. That seems to be more just straight energy, focus on everything and just let it do its own thing. You
Yes.
had we had talked about the Holy Fire Reiki once before, and I just found it interesting with the sound element to it. It was almost like it's a sound healing at the same time mixed with Reiki.
Yeah.
even though it is Reiki, but mixed with the energy healing and sound at the same time.
Yeah, you can use it that way. Yes. Like there's like 9 different symbols with the Holy Fire Reiki. And with each symbol, like I said, they have a specific thing that they work on. So you can use that and you can, as you're holding your hands like you would normal Usui Reiki, you can say or like hum it out loud.
Like, what would a symbol attribute to? Is it more like this symbol is only for anxiety, or is it this symbol is more emotional
Yeah,
distress?
some are for like emotional distress, some are for like, I'm trying to remember what they all are right now. Clears like past life stuff, some are for more of a physical or things like that.
Okay, interesting.
And at the moment, I cannot put my finger on what any of them exactly are, like specifically, of course. I was looking to see. Yeah.
So as we start to get close to wrapping it up, is there anything else about your journey that you feel is important to share, or any other tips or tricks you want to share?
No, just that if you have the opportunity to learn any type of energy work or have a session with somebody to start a journey, you should hop on because it can take you on rides you can't imagine.
And we can follow that up with, why don't you let people know where they can find you if they're interested in a session or just working with you, or maybe they just got questions. Maybe they're also in a Jehovah's Witness situation and they're looking to get out and want some advice.
You can find me at holisticenergies.com
Okay. And I'll put that in the show note as well.
or holisticenergyspecialist.com. I have both of those actually.
Okay. Perfect. Well, I appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Shaman Stories podcast. If you have any interest in the services that I provide or the services of my guest, please click the link in the show notes below. Thank you. And until next time, have a good journey.